welcoming the co-founder and CEO of Aztec Labs. Everyone, please give a round of applause for Zac Williamson.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zachary Williamson. I am CEO and co-founder of Aztec Labs. We are a privacy-first programmable layered ethereal. Effectively, we've been working for 8 years now with a singular mission of recreating the smart contract ecosystem of Ethereum, but one where you have private information on chain and you can transact with private data. And I'm here to talk about why privacy matters, why this technology matters, what the future, the imminent future of blockchain is going to look like, and how embracing privacy technology is going to lead to an explosion of liquidity on chain. So, I want to present a new framework, a new canon for why Web3 is going to become so valuable in the future. Because it's a very simple equation. When you have private information on chain, where that data is encrypted, your ledger is encrypted, and every individual transactions are effectively using zero-knowledge proofs to manipulate that encrypted data. You get the best of all worlds. You get these strong guarantees of decentralization, but you also don't have this coarse transparency where everything is visible on chain. And if you have these properties, what that enables is identity. Instead of just being a string of letters and characters in chain, you can now be an individual. I can prove on a network like Aztec that my name is Zachary Williamson. I'm 37 years old, I live in the United Kingdom, and I'm proving this not to me, but to smart contracts. And with identity, you can now immediately just own assets on chain. Your assets don't need to be purely synthetic. They can be representations of real-world assets, where have non-custodial wallets on-chain that can go over the trade and transact these assets, because on-chain protocols, smart contracts, can perform the required PyCharts regulatory checks to understand that yes, you are allowed to pay this asset, you are allowed tolling. And what this does is it unlocks effectively DeFi, but for assets sourced to the repo. And I'm going to explain in the next minute why I think this is going to be a revolution. But before I do, just a quick segue into what the Aztec network is. So it's fully frictionless, fully decentralized. As a layer 2 on Ethereum, it functions like a blockchain network using Ethereum's consensus and has smart contracts, but they're private. This is why we are calling us the first featured deep blockchain in the world, because with Aztec, you can really fully link what happens in a smart contract, what happens in the real world, in Web 2. No longer are you limited by purely static assets in it, and you can have meaningful information on chain now. We've been building this for 8 years. Well, 6 to 8, depending on how you count it. Our testnet's live, fully decentralized. People are building out something actively as I speak, and we are aiming to launch the full network early next year. I want to pose a question to you. Has blockchain met its original ambitions and aspirations of its creators, people like Satoshi Nakamoto, people like Vitalik? And I would argue that whilst blockchain is extraordinarily valuable, whilst it's very useful, whilst it's a powerful technology, it has nevertheless failed in the aspiration of its inventions. Bitcoin was not designed to be digital gold. It was designed to be a payments vehicle, a payments mechanism where a digital currency could compete and contest with fiat issued by sovereign states. Ethereum was designed to enable centralized banks. It was designed to enable financial products and services that we take for granted in the real world, but in a much more permissionless environment. And again, we've largely seen that fail. We don't have decentralized banks. We do have stablecoins, and we do have stablecoin payment, which is important, but it's not the full picture. And my first question to you, why is this the case? Why has blockchain failed to break out of its Web3 bubble as a global payment infrastructure, global financial infrastructure that everybody uses? And I would argue that the key reason is a lack of privacy. Everything that happens on blockchains like Bitcoin, it's fully public. This means you can't put your real-world identity on that network. And without that, smart contracts, blockchain protocols, they can't perform the logical checks and guarantees that they need to determine if you are allowed to hold or trade an asset that is sourced from the real world, that exists within a legal or regulatory jurisdiction on the planet. But with privacy technology, you can do that, and that's what makes it exciting. And I'm going to explain now why this is malleable. This is not just a synthetically interesting topic. This is not just an academically interesting topic. And I'll say why. Where does all the value of blockchain come from? All the money that is used in this industry, that is used to create these incredible conferences like Token2049, it only comes two sources. There's dollar-backed stablecoins, and there's the native value of economic consensus on a blockchain, the consensus tokens. How much people are willing to pay in Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana to get a trustless record of events. To give an example of why this is the case, imagine if the price of Ethereum went to zero tomorrow. We all know the value of every single token on Ethereum would also go to zero, with the exception of dollar-backed stablecoins. I would posit this huge. This liquidity universe of these resources, it's tiny relative to existing capital markets. The AUM of BlackRock, for example, is substantially higher than the total value not on the Ethereum side. And that's one company. Without being able to reach the real world, without being able to tap real world assets on chain and make them liquid, to use them as a source of liquidity or DeFi and other financial products and services, the growth ceiling for crypto is basically capped. Because we only have this scenario that needs to change, and privacy is doing more changing. So this is where I said the new canon exists. With identity, you have non-custodial accounts where I can pick who I am, or it can be an entity, just give you a plus. It could be an organization, it could be a DAO, but where you have checks and balances and some kind of broader conditions that give smart contracts the ability to answer who you are. For example, I possess a Coinbase account and I've gone through Coinbase KYC. Or I can use something like ZK passports to create a zero-knowledge proof of my passports to prove I'm the UK citizen. And then I can use that in DeFi as a compliance. And I didn't see, well, it enables ownership now. I want to be able to own something in the real world, based on, where everything presented happens on chain. The issuance, the trade, the settlement. This is really an Aztec DNA, because what we started out doing in 2017 was not privacy tech. Me and my co-founder, we were trying to build a traditional financial product on chain, serving existing capital markets, serving mid-market debt. But we needed privacy to do that. And now we're doing it. We made privacy, and now companies, Web3 companies, are using this technology that we built. For that original use case that we were trying to do in 2017, we have companies building mid-market debt products using our technology. And finally, he gets to self-sovereign ownership, non-custodial wallets holding real-world assets. For this to happen, privacy must become a core value of blockchain. It can't be an asset-specific thing. We're just going to be one of the first. Once you have real-world assets someday, and you can put them in the DeFi protocols, that's the important phase. Right now, we do have real-world assets on chain, but they are too abstract. To hold these assets, you need to go through third-party information brokers, information custodian, because you can't just hold a bond or a mortgage or a syndicated loan on chain. What's happening is that somebody else is owning it, and they're just giving you some digital proxy, because that proxy is not tradable. You can't put it into a new centralized exchange, because not everybody can hold that asset. But if you can perform compliance checks, regulatory checks within a smart contract framework, then you can create an equivalent of Uniswap for real-world assets and associated DeFi primitive, and then that unlocks these assets at the source of liquidity. And that turns the liquidity, amount of liquidity available, it's not being measured in a million, and it's starting measured in a trillions. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to all blockchain database, make it global financial infrastructure? The first thing we need to do is we need to interface with Web 2. We need to be able to get information from Web 2 in smart contracts, Web 3, cluster C, using technologies like zk-TLS to get information from web servers into smart contracts, using technologies like emails to get information emails to smart contracts. For example, I can use the technology that we're building to prove that I have an email from His Majesty's Revenue and Collection Services complaining about my late tax filing, which will disprove I'm a UK taxpayer. Put that in a smart contract. And then that smart contract can issue a credential based off of this proof saying, yes, okay, this person is probably a UK taxpayer. And then you can use that credential in other products and services still contained in a composable manner, creating this a form of holistic identity, where instead of your identity being defined by one centralized source, it's being drawn from a large number of disparate sources, where companies can build products on Aztec where they create identity species that they from their specific products, but in doing so, they issue a digital credential that can be used by other products and services, which can then be used to create meta credentials, effectively allowing an understanding of who you are to be sourced from a very large cast of actors, which I think is a lot more secure and more scalable than the existing system, where if I want to KYC myself to do something in the real world, see some financial transaction, I've got to go do some process that, and then if I want to do if I need to go through some other regulated transaction, I have to do that KYC process all over again, because these companies don't share data, they don't trust each other with programmable privacy, with closable smart contract, page settle, and a genuinely forceful system for identities. And then the final technique is to establish digital solvents. Once you have these systems, protocols existing in chain, you can create precedent that owning a digital asset represents a claim to property in the real world. And once that's established, the world will change. The ingredients to unlock blockchain are a zero-knowledge programming language, Blah, that we built. It's a very high level that abstracts away all the cryptography. Any dev on blockchain can build a Blah and create private programs. And then we have the Aztec network, which is effectively an execution environment for Noir, where we have an encrypted state lender, an encrypted blockchain which understands privacy and understands private transactions. When you combine with Noir, means you can have, I call a smart contract that is private, that calls another private smart contract somebody else wrote, that calls another private smart contract that somebody else wrote. Effectively enabling the force multipliers of blockchain. And then finally, is state-to-be-up cryptography tied all together, which is something that we excel at. Our cryptography we invented and powered a lot of blockchain protocols today. What I'm talking about is not science fiction, it's science-backed. The Aztec technology stack is being used in the digital world today. You could download an app from the App Store or ZK Pass Store that uses our tech, which allows you to processly get proofs of your citizen, of your name, without revealing any additional information. We have bank-grade private security segments. We have 100% media. This is just the start. This is the start of the storm that is to come, where we're going to be creating the real decentralized banking, fulfilling the real original vision of blockchain all those years ago. Finally, in 2026, creating for the first time the world's first feature complete blockchain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zac Williamson, ladies and gentlemen.